Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Surtur from Slytherin, and today we are playing To End All Wars in celebration of a great sale that's going on this weekend. So if you like what you see here and our stream tonight and a brief overview of the game, please hit the link below, the banner below, and we'll take you right to the product page. And again, we got a great sale for you tonight on this game, so please uh, have a look and see if you like it. So those of you who are coming here expecting to watch the just released um, Operation Torch War in the West expansion, please bear with us. That will actually be a long stream coming up Saturday, so be sure to tune in by then, as producer Eric will give you a great walkthrough of that game. So that's coming next. But like I said, today we're going to focus on To End All Wars, which is on sale at the moment. So to those of you who are unfamiliar with To End All Wars, it is a turn-based strategy game using a WeGo system, so simultaneous turn-based, set during the First World War, and it lets you play as either the Central Powers, the Western Allies, or Western Entente, or the Eastern Entente, focused on Russia. So we're going to take you one of the smaller scenarios that's actually from the expansion DLC pack called Breaking the Deadlock. And I'm going to take you through some of the basics, show you what the game is about. I can only show you a brief bit of all the tons and tons of details in there. This is really one of the most detailed games about World War One that is out there at the moment. But we're going to focus mainly on army management and combat. So I'm going to hit New Game on the main menu, and that will take us through the selection where we can select all our scenarios. You can filter them as well between the tutorials, the small battles, and the longer campaigns. Or you got the full list over here. So what we're going to do today is play one of the DLC campaigns, one of the Breaking the Deadlock scenarios. We're going to play Conquest of Serbia, 1915 to 1916. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of scenarios to choose from. So there are some less common conflicts, like the Italian front at the end of 1916, like Caporetto. We got the war in Palestine, which is actually covered by this game as well. We got the Romanian front in 1916, 1917. So there are a couple of fronts that aren't as often depicted by other World War One games, and we also have some of the grand campaigns. So if you want to play the war from start to finish as one of the alliances, hi there, Self-Searcher, glad you could join us. So if you want to play the entire campaign from one of these scenarios, you can do that as well. So like I said, we're going to jump into a battle scenario, Conquest of Serbia, and for each scenario you can choose which side you want to play, so there's a lot of replayability there already. So we're going to play as the Central Powers, and this scenario covers the operations on the Serbian Balkan front from the end of 1915 till 1916. So this is a 20-turn scenario, which is a bit mid-sized scenario, I would say. The long campaigns, let me just grab a quick one, would be about 106 turns over here, so they're way longer. That's like Conquest of Serbia, and we're going to play as the Central Powers. We're going to go on the offensive here. So having done that, I'm going to hit play. There might be a couple of guys over in the audience tonight that are familiar with Ageod, but have not yet actually broken through the system. To those of you, please pay attention, special attention today, as we're going to work you through the basics and tell you everything you need to know to actually start enjoying the game, start having fun, and start doing some basic strategies. There's a whole lot more into the games that we're going to cover tonight, but once you get the basics going, it's a whole lot easier to get into those details. So here we are, Serbia 1915. So we got a little introduction text over here telling us what we have to do. And essentially, we have to go on the offensive, and we have to take Serbia before reinforcements, Serbian reinforcements come out from the south. So let's zoom out quickly to have a quick view of where we are at this moment. So we can see the map over here. This is the part we're fighting at, and as you can see, the rest of the map, it's there. So some scenarios use the entire map, especially the campaigns, obviously, and you can see how detailed it is, how many regions there are there, etc. In this case, we're focusing on a small area. Let me just quickly bring up the military control map mode, and you can see that we're the lighter color over here. The Serbians are the darker color over here. We got the Bulgarians, we got the Albanians, we got the Greeks as well. Um, so we are the lighter color. We have to go on the offensive and conquer Serbia. Um, yes, it is a very detailed map, and perhaps if we got some time left toward the end, I can show you the full map. Actually, in the Grand campaign, you can really see all the detail. I mean, the entire map is covered with as much detail as you can see here. So we got the forests, the cities, etc. Um, we got railroad lines, railroads, which are extremely important for the game, actually. Um, so we're gonna go over most of that. Right, so let's inspect our forces first. So we are the central power. So we got German army and we got Austro-Hungarian armies, and the Austro-Hungarian armies are again a multinational force. So here, for example, we got a corps consisting of Czech legions and Croatian groups. Um, so we got very multinational corps. Okay, so our main job is to capture Belgrade. Um, we got more cities. The cities with a star here are the strategic objectives. So we got to take Niš, we got to take Skopje over in the south, and um, we got an objective over here as well. So the first thing we're going to do, we have to go on the offensive because the enemy is going to get reinforcements relatively soon coming in from Greece, from the south. We got French and British detachments. So we're going to try and break through their defenses and push south all the way. One thing we have to take into consideration is that Bulgaria is about to join the war on our side. So they're still locked for now, but in a couple of turns' time, they will actually declare war, thinking that the time is right, and we can use their troops as well to go on the offensive. So everything in Ageod games is done by dragging and dropping. Um, and a question here already from self-server: can you do smaller groups? You can make armies as big as or small as you want yourself. So in this case, we're moving entire corps around, but you can actually split those up into smaller groups. We got some very small formations over here, for example, uh, like individual brigade units. So we can either move entire stacks or we can move them in smaller formations and cover more ground. So that's all depending on our playstyle and the characteristics of your army. So in this case, we're going to launch an offensive on Belgrade. We're going to use our 11th army, and we're going to select them and move them south to Belgrade. And they have to cross a river, so the enemy has got a nice defensive value over there. So we are also sending in the 3rd Army Corps with the army. Our 3rd Army, our Austro-Hungarian Army, main Austro-Hungarian Army in the area is still locked for this turn, so that will be available next turn. And we got some reserve corps as well to cover the flanks. And we're going to keep them in reserve for now, staying true to their name. So then we got another reserve corps over here, and I'd like to move them across the river over here to threaten the northern flank over here and make it easy to line up with the Bulgarians should they enter the war. And again, I'm clicking on the unit and I'm dragging and dropping it into the region where I want it. It will automatically find the shortest route to there, and if you want, you can set a custom path. So say I wanted to go from here to here, but I wouldn't want to cross the water directly. I could easily chart a path through any region I want. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Of course, in this case, I just want to have the shortest path over there. So I'm setting my orders now. Once I hit end turn, the orders will be executed, but also the enemy orders will be executed at the same time. That's what we call the We Go system. So it's a simultaneous turn-based system. So you don't have that action-reaction you would find in many turn-based games. You actually have to anticipate what the enemy will be doing in order to catch his armies. Over here, I'm going to merge these two Austro-Hungarian stacks, and I'm going to have them do a united attack on the enemy over here, which is well entrenched. We can see the barbed wire actually sticking out of their counter. So having given my initial orders, I'm going to hit the end turn button, and we're going to see our first turn progression, and after that we're going to do a little more into detail. I see Self-Search is asking a very good question over there about the terrain effects. There are a whole bunch of terrain effects out there. Perhaps once the battle actually starts off, I can show some of them. But yes, woods, hills, mountains, rivers, etc. They all form obstacles, and they all influence the battle to some degree. Especially when it comes to frontage. So terrains where very small, so when there are very small frontage available in the terrain because of the forest, um, there's a good chance you won't actually be able to bring your entire army to the field at one go. So we're moving up our troops. They're still not there. Still, they'll be expected to go there in 4 days. And a very good point here by one of the viewers is you can manipulate the stances of your army, and that's something I wanted to cover in a couple of turns' time, but we can very well do this now. So aside from just moving where you want your army to send your armies, you can set like a stance determining how aggressive they should operate once they enter a certain region. So by default, they're set to a defensive stance, so they won't engage the enemy in the region unless the enemy engages them, and they are set to defend by the standard rules, so a fairly determined defense. You can have them say defend at all costs, or you can say defend and then retreat, or just run away immediately. So there are different stances there, but the main aggressive stances are so you can go for the defensive posture, the offensive posture, and the assault posture, which is what you want to have when you actually want to assault fortifications if you have made enough breaches in the enemy fortifications. And there's the passive posture as well, which makes the army unfit for battle, really, but makes it prioritizes it for getting replacements and getting its organization back up. So we are still going planning our attack. We actually got the third army ready to join the fray as well, so we're going to just drop them in there, even though they might not be necessary for the fight around Belgrade. I want to move them up so I can quickly push for the enemy, and lining up with my Bulgarian allies will be the first thing I want to achieve. So we got an event over here, Bulgarian mobilization. So the alliance signed by King Ferdinand with the Central Powers. So the Bulgarians are mobilizing and they're getting ready for war. They're not at war yet this turn, but that should be happening fairly soon. So we got the big events appearing here. We got lots of smaller events for those of you who really want to dive into the micromanagement, see exactly what happened everywhere at any given time. So there's a whole lot to analyze for the fans of the real micromanagement. And again, the main events are highlighted here as well in red, so you can actually click on them and get the information as well. So far everyone's still executing the orders I initially gave them. I'm quite happy with that. These guys are here together now, so I'm going to give them both the order to move south and threaten the enemy over there, and put as much pressure as early as possible. So how long do they reckon it will take? 16 days. This one only 8 days. So I could potentially give the synchronized movement order. No, I'm going to go ahead and go in as quickly as possible and establish a foothold. Let's take a bit of risk here. So we're going to hit end turn, and a question over here about the logistics. Yes, logistics and supplies are a huge part of this game. Slightly less so in this scenario because it is a shorter one, but they are a major part of the game, and we're going to cover them probably next turn then. At least the basics of them. There's quite a bit of stuff involved there. There are different kind of supplies. But right now we're looking at a battle going on. We actually achieved a victory against the armies of Radomir Putnik. And we can see the troops that participated in the battles. So we can actually see at the start of the battle who did what, and at the different rounds of combat. Which troops were engaged, what they did, what kind of modifiers were in play. This is very detailed, and you can analyze this as through great lengths. You can see the different battle setups. In bigger battles, you can actually choose your own battle tactics. And you get the end result over here, and we can see that we lost about 20,000 men, 21,000 men, and the enemy lost even more so, about 30,000. So that was a great victory for us, especially when you consider that in World War I, obviously, the attacker is usually the one that suffers most. So we can definitely be happy with this result. And you can see that the turn is actually resolved day by day. So it's not just one big push, one big impulse as soon as you hit end turn. So that means that if one army arrives at day 1 and the other army arrives at day 3, they might arrive in the same turn, but the day is different. It means that the first army might actually be able to dig in before the second army arrives. Plastic Gangsta is correct here. There is the supply map overlay here as well as it is in other Ageod games. So this will give you an idea of where your supplies can fit through, what your supply sources are. And supplies actually works with a supply and demand mechanic, and I'm not no pun intended there. So supply is automatically generated by cities and other structures that generate supplies, and then push forward to armies and depots that request supplies, and that's done automatically. The important part for you is actually to keep your supply routes open, to have as much depots as possible in order to get the regular supply throughput over there, and not to get isolated, obviously, behind enemy lines. Again, in this small scenario, supplies aren't too much of an issue, but in bigger scenarios, it's definitely something you have to take into consideration constantly, and taking away the enemy supplies is a very good tactic to actually win some battles. In addition, there's also, if you struggle with supplies, if you don't want to mess too much with supplies, you can also set to use the easy supply map rules, in which case whenever your army is in friendly territory, it will always be in supply. So if you're just starting the game, that might be the way to go, but it's definitely worth using the using supplies. So one of the other things with supplies is there are supply trains as well in your army, so these can be recruited and trained, and these will be allow you to have your army supplied a bit longer while in combat. So there are actually two kinds of supplies. We discussed supplies quite a bit. It should be mentioned that there are two types of supplies. So there are general supplies, which is like food, clothing, etc. There's also the war supplies, and these will be like your munitions. So these are separated. So an army can be well fed, but if they don't have any bullets to actually shoot, they would tend to lose a lot of many battles. So draining your enemy's bullets, draining their ammo, is a great way to get into a fort as well. So let's have a look over here actually at our current situation. We are occupying the region around Belgrade, but we don't occupy the city yet. There's still an enemy army inside the fort there, so we have to lay siege to it. So we have our 11th Army supported by a 3rd Corps doing that right now. Our 3rd Army is moving up, and I think after that we're going to push them right south to capture this area. And capturing the railroads will be important for me as well, because that will allow me to quickly shift troops between these areas. Another major event that's happening over here is the declaration of war from Bulgaria. So Bulgaria now officially entered the war, and we can now move their troops as if they were our own. So they're indicated by the green. We got a number of commanders. We got 3 larger forces, well, 1 main force, 3 medium-sized forces, and 3 light forces, or border control. And we're going to actually move our light force down here to Dorian. And what we're going to try and do with that force is try and destroy the enemy railroad, so they won't be able to rail up units up north as quickly as they otherwise would. We're also going to take this crossroads over here at Vranja and try and grab that for ourselves. We're going to engage at Pirot, and we're going to send our Bulgarian high command all the way to Niš and start putting pressure over there. Either they will win by themselves, or they will draw the enemy from the northern part of the front back, in which case that would be great for me as well, obviously. At the same time, we're going to move our 10th Reserve Corps south and try and put pressure, and again, try to get the link up, which would be a great moral boost for our troops, obviously. So aside from that, some of our troops are still moving. I'm going to move... I'm not going to move my planes south yet. I'm going to keep them where they are. I can move this guy over here. He's not doing anything really impacts. I'm gonna assume he will be free for some time, so I'm gonna rail him in south. You can see if I would say give the normal order, it would take 20 days. Let's see if there's a good railroad connection. There is. So if I force them to move them by rail, you can see it actually will only take 6 days. So railroads are hugely important for effectively moving your troops around. Um, so having done that, I think I'm not gonna push here with this force alone. So I'm gonna keep them where they are. I think I'm gonna keep these defending Sarajevo. It's quite an important place actually, and I'm gonna hit and turn again and see if we can finally see if we can do some damage against this fort and create some breaches, which we will need before we can actually assault it. So the enemy is using his own railroads to move troops about as well, which is obviously not to my advantage. We engage the enemy over here at the forested region, and it's quite heavy fighting actually. It doesn't seem like we're winning too much. We got an Austrian defeat over here. We lost a significant amount of troops. The enemy had a very good defensive terrain here, was well prepared for it. Defending forests is obviously a great way to go. So we lost over here. I'm not sure. We weren't pushed out of the region, so the region itself is still contested, but we're definitely on the losing hand. So I'm going to see if I can actually try and I'm going to merge them just for ease of use. And again, merging, you saw how simple it was. I grabbed one stack, put it over the other, and they were merged. And the same reason you can actually split them up. It's all drag and drop with this interface. Once you get used to it, it's extremely convenient. So I think rather than retreating them, I'm going to send in reinforcements. I'm going to send in the infantry division brigade. We just moved from Pest, and I'm going to move it south. And hopefully it will arrive in time. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use our reserve corps. I'm going to move them up and try and put some pressure. Let's move them to Belgrade first and help with the attack. We're going to order our third army further south to take more control of the area. And we got a significant force over here, which we'll need to deal with at some point. So I think I'm going to move in my reserve corps, my other reserve corps as well, in order to do that. So that seems to be going well. Our Bulgarian troops seem to be moving up. So let's hit and turn again. And again, I'm not using a great number of features here that are in the Grand campaigns. So you got like recruitment, you got political decisions you can play, you got regional decisions you can play for specific effects. There is all kinds of stuff when it comes to, well, it's something we can have a look at. Not so much production, which again is not on one of these smaller scenarios, but replacement. How they work. This is quite nifty system really, and it takes into account all the different nationalities inside Indian army. So that makes it even harder to really support a multinational army. So if I hit F2, it can also be accessed through the different menus. But if I hit F2, we can see the production and replacement screen. So and over here, we got the different nationalities we're actually fighting with, and we see the demand for replacement and the amount of replacement chits we have available, and so you'd have to manually buy these in advance, and when you suffer casualties they will be drawn from this pool. Luckily there's an option if you don't want to use this, and that's something I've done here for ease of use. You can set the AI to automatically buy these replacements for you, so if you don't want to be bothered too much with this and just want to focus on the movement and on the fighting, then it's definitely an option you want to hit. Like use the automatic replacements and not be too bothered with it. Even when you use the automatic replacements like I do now, you can still actually tweak it. So I can still order extras, as you can see, at the cost of resources. So you got like you got money, you got manpower, you got war supplies. These are your main resources. The other resource we see here is railroad capacity, which actually limits how many troops you can be moving around. So far, it is looking okayish. We are besieging the enemy. We are going on defensive. It's not going very fast. There are a lot of delays. So delays can be caused by all kinds of stuff. There can be traffic jams if you move too many troops at the same time. Um, there can be leaders can fail their activation check, in which case they're inactive, unresponsive for whatever reason there is. Again, all these options I'm mentioning here are tweakable, so you can change how realistic you want these effects to be. So if you are new to the engine, you might want to turn down or lower the effects of some of these things. But in the very hard way, if a general is inactive, it won't do anything for that turn. And its strategic rating depends actually how often it will be active. So good generals you can really rely on, whereas tough generals, he might be very good on the offensive, but he might fail a lot of activation checks. Um, so we have a Bulgarian victory, even though we suffered. Oh no, well, we actually made a good trade-off over here, doing some good damage to the enemy reserve, and we taken Nish. Have we taken Nish yet? We haven't taken it yet. And in the forest, we suffered another defeat, losing a good number of men, 12,000, only inflicting 1,600 casualties. So troops are getting slaughtered there. And here we can see the battle planner. And this is one of these features that if you used to play Ageod games, but you only just come back to them, you might not be familiar with this feature yet. This is the battle planner, and for bigger battles with good commanders, you can actually choose your own plan for the battle. So it gives you some influence of how the battle will play out. If you have a higher strategic rating than the enemy, if you have better generals than your enemy, generally you deploy last, so you can get an idea of what the enemy will be doing. So in this case, they're going to go for deployed with a strong center, and then they can choose either of these three battle plans. So they can go for the offensive, they can go for a double line, which is slightly more cautious, or they can just try and shoot at me from a distance, try to limit their own casualties. Meanwhile, I can set different plans, so I can go for a balanced plan, I can go for a retreating plan, where I just fight a battle and slowly drift away from the battlefield. I can go for a harassment plan, which is very good to wear down the enemy without too much casualties really on your end. So it's a fairly safe choice, and it's also a good way to get the enemy to spend its munitions when you know you got a lot more than the enemy. So dragging out the battles, etc. You can set the strong flanks or a strong center. In this case, since we're out overpowering the enemy quite a bit, I'm inclined to use strong flanks and lure the enemy in, and then use the crossfire option. So in this case, our center will actually retreat and our flanks will band inwards, enveloping the enemy and using superior firepower on the enemy to do so. We can see the terrain that's going to be affecting it. So they have their own effects on the game. If you don't want to do it, you can turn it off in the menu. Again, this is an optional thing. A lot of things about Ageod are optional, so you can play really in your own style. Or you can just hit the question mark button and the AI will choose a plan for you. So I'm going to do that, and we can see the battle commencing, and we can see if our plan is working out. And it is not working out as well as it should have. We actually suffered a good amount of casualties. It seems like our envelopment could not be completed, possibly because of the terrain. But we still managed to actually win the battle through superior power. We got another battle going on. Again, the Bulgarians against the enemy. The enemy got superior cavalry troops, so outflanking might be tricky. We don't have any cavalry actually at this point, so I think I'm just going to go for a balanced setup, a balanced battle plan. Nothing too fancy. The other thing I could do, artillery-wise, we're about the same, so I could go for a counter battery, but I don't think it would be too effective. So I'm going to go for a balanced plan, not take too many chances, and just hold the line. Yes, Surtur. Ageod's continually evaluating their engine, upgrading their engine, evolving their engine, and that's all based on consumer feedback. So any ideas for the games, take it to the forums, especially the Ageod forums. The devs are very active there, and leave your feedback, and they'll be sure to read it. So we got a Bulgarian victory over here. Again, heavy casualties on both sides, true to World War One. And we're processing day 7 now, and we can already see some British and French troops up here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select these guys, before the enemy is upon me. I'm going to try and have them destroy the railroad over here, and it might slow them down just enough. The other thing I will want to do is I want to take Skopje before the enemy entrenches it. So I'm going to take this army and order it south, and it will take a good number of turns, so I better be there sooner rather than later. One of the things I have to be wary of, though, is being outflanked by the enemy force over here. So I'm going to move the first army south, and I'm going to order it to attack them. Now there are some leftover troops here that have been defeated. What I'm going to try and take, I'm going to try and not fight with them. Rather, actually, I'm going to try and have them starve out due to a lack of supplies. Here, this army, I'm going to retreat. They're really getting pounded. So hopefully they can move out in time. Whereas over here, we're doing a great job, but we can see the Serbian flag still above Belgrade. So we haven't captured that yet. Meanwhile, we're going to send the third army, the Austro-Hungarian army, south and take the strategic railroad, and again get a nice link up over here. And let's have a look. Here it all is quiet, so that's a good sign. I'm not sure what the enemy's up to over here. We don't have a very strong defense on this end. Hopefully I'm just putting enough pressure on this front and the northern front to prevent them from any offensive action. So we've taken Nish, and automatically a Landsturm is generated, so a garrison unit that will allow our Bulgarian troops, Bulgarian High Command, to move up. So we're going to try and take this area from two directions. And having done that, see if there's a couple of reports over here. So we got the battle reports, which we've seen. There's also the capture of Nish, so we've captured this strategic city, and that it says here seals the fate of northern Serbia. So capturing these strategic cities are definitely are like event based, and they can have all kinds of effects. So having done that, let's hit and turn again. And we're going to go through this relatively fast. There are a lot more detail to see there. I'm actually trying to see if I can finish one scenario for this game. Again, if you play the Grand campaign, there's so much more you can see, you can do. We could see actually an enemy depot over here, and that might be a very juicy target for some of our lighter troops. If we can capture their depot, their supply situation here will deteriorate significantly, and at the same time it will help us launch more determined offensives against the enemy. Send you guys in support. Can you attack a single target with 2 or more armies? Yes, you definitely can. Armies will try and support each other if they are in the same region. That doesn't mean it will always happen. There's always a chance for delay. An army might get lost there. The roads might be too crowded because of the huge amounts of troops out there. So there's always a chance it won't happen, and there might be a delay and when to arrive in the battle. But yes, they will try and support each other. So I'm going to send out the 3rd Corps as well. There's not much point in keeping them here. And I think I'm going to send the 3rd Corps and one of our reserve corps to try and attack this area and actually cut off the enemy located over here, which is being quite a pain in my backside. And again, these guys I have to deal with at some point as well. But I prefer to starve them out rather than fight them out because they got nice defensive ground, and it takes a good couple of turns to get into the area properly. I'm going to move our Grenzers south just to capture this border town. And again, you can see 17 days for regular travel. When I order them to move by rail, 2 days. So again, that highlights how significant the rear roads are. And like Self-Searcher says, if you buy the game from our own website, Slytherin, Matrix, or Ageod, you'll actually get a Steam key as well, so you can activate your game on Steam. So you have both the DRM-free version as well as the Steam version, which is pretty awesome deal, really. Also, if you buy from our own website, you can actually get a boxed copy. In which case you get a printed menu as well, if I recall correctly. Check the product page for clarification on that. Uh, and if you even if you do like the box copy, you already get a download code. You already get the Steam key you can use, so you can start playing right away while you wait for your physical copy to arrive. So I think all is going fairly well. I really want to make a good number of breaches here. I want to take Belgrade, but so far it's not really going too well there. Sieges can take a very, very long time if the enemy is well dug in, as you might understand. You really run into to bring in the big guns. So there are like all kinds of different types of artillery in the game. We got the lighter and the medium artillery, which are more for battles, quickly moving them about. We got the heavy and siege artillery. We got coastal batteries, etc. They can all be used. So here we actually managed to intercept some enemy supplies, and which obviously leads to a victory. And it will actually allow you to capture some supply cards from the enemy as well. So that's a great feature to have. So you can actually capture, if you capture the enemy off guard, you can capture their supplies, you can capture their cannons. So our Austrian army is actually besieging the town over here. Here we have engaged the enemy with our Bulgarian force, but the enemy is still in there. So actually, within a region, in most games out there, there's only like a region is either owned by one side or by the other. In this case, there's a mix going on. So any particular region can be controlled for different percentages by different sides. So in this case, we've achieved a 91% military control in this area over here. Whereas the enemy is still present with 9%. So two armies can actually be in the same region at the same time, and they'll be fighting over these percentages of military control, so over full control of the region. And that's a great way to actually represent trench warfare, which you will see especially on the Western Front. So we're getting very close to Skopje over here, and it appears to be undefended, although we do see a good amount of French movement. Unfortunately, we failed to blow up the rear road, so I'm going to give the order again. And hopefully manage to do that. Yes, Plastic Gangsta. I mean, there are a lot of features that carry over. They're obviously tweaked in order to better represent the actual mechanics of the specific time periods. But if you use to play one of the Ageod games, picking up the others will be a very quick thing to do. And you will focus on the differences, like the way airplanes work, etc., railroads, rather than some of the that weren't present in the older games. So we've achieved a good number of breaches over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch the assault actually. So I'm going to hit the assault button, and we're going to go all in. We're going to do an all-out attack on the enemy. Because I need to free up this army and start taking out these troops. This one has been significantly late, this group over here, 10th Reserve Corps, but they should be very close now. So yeah, we got the supply cars over here. Where was it? But the enemy is still present. Exactly, Plastic Gangster. The engine works differently for all the different time periods, but like you say, the core features of the game and the core mechanics of the game, they take over from different from the different mechanics. So if you're used to American Civil War, you'll feel right at home with Two End All Wars. That's definitely true. So we achieved a significant victory over here, killing 22,000 or claiming 22,000 casualties over the enemy. and another significant victory by the Bulgarian army, actually ambushing properly, probably without suffering any casualties, taking over 6,000 enemy casualties. So that was great leadership by the commander. And we got another battle going on of the Bulgarian army against the enemy. The enemy has a bit lower combat power, and combat power is based off of the amount of units that are there, how well they're supplied, how well they're organized, and how well their leadership is distributed. It's not the actual number that is used in the combat calculation that's much more intricate. There's a whole bunch more going on there, but it's to give you an idea of how strong this army is. So we're somewhat stronger than the enemy according to combat power, but not overly so. So we still have to be cautious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a more harassment. I'm going to try and take as many casualties, make as many casualties as possible from a distance, using the bombard communications. Yes, cohesion, exactly. Sorry, I used organization, but cohesion is the right word there. Thank you, Plastic Gangster. And great nickname, by the way. And we had a fairly conservative plan, but it worked out very well. And we can see again how the turn progress is day by day. In this case, we got 7-day turns. In different games, you got different length of turns actually, all depending on how much maneuver there was during the war. So we got another significant battle around Belgrade, Battle of Belgrade, date number 2. We're significantly stronger than the enemy, and we have much better leadership, so we could really fight try and get the enemy out of the way. The enemy's going for more of a retreating battle, so they can do one of these 3 plans. So what I like to do is I like to increase my flanks and try and go around their flank and try and envelop them. I want as few to retreat the field as possible. And we managed to inflict significant casualties upon the enemy, though a major part of the force still remains, and we'll actually be able to retreat. We got another battle now going south over here at Vaus, between the Bulgarians and a small enemy force. We should be able to take them out. They're going for a strong center, and I like to get them into the crossfire again. We got a hilly terrain here, but no trees this time, so that might work out better than it did last time. And it worked out very well. We lured them into our center, and then enveloped them and got them in crossfire, dealt significant casualties without them ever reaching us. And we are engaged some more troops over here, and we suffered significant amount of casualties, but we did win and push them back. But it shows that they're actually already at Skopje, which is not a good sign for us. We should have rushed in there quicker. So we're gonna move this army. I'm hesitant to see what I think I'm gonna move them south to Skopje as well. I really want to take this area. So I'm gonna leave my flank a bit threatened here, but that's okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to send our 10th Reserve Corps, which have done a great job pushing south here. I'm going to send them back into the forest and continue putting pressure on the enemy formations over here, which I really want to get rid of. At the same time, we actually captured Belgrade. So that is a huge victory for us, guys. Not only will that free up a good number of areas, we captured some supply wagons as well, which we can join with our 11th Army. but we got a good amount of victory points as well, which brings me to the victory point screen. If I hit F9, which is also available from the ledger, we can see here, these are the objectives we have to capture and properly what do you call it, garrison. So we got Belgrade. Niš, we got Niš, but we haven't garrisoned with enough force to claim it as our own for the victory point of view. So we need to do that. And we got Skopje. We're very close to there. So that is going fairly well. We can see here how well we are actually doing. So we got a victory point number of 248 when we got at this rate with our current amount of strategic and objective towns we have. We're gathering 13 points per turn. And the enemy is actually having 140 victory points, get 10 per turn. So as long as we actually keep the odds even now, we should be winning by points alone. But obviously we're going to try and push on further and further and make a bigger difference in numbers. So can you check if the soldiers are tired? Well, tiring is a bit of a... it checks the cohesion of armies. So if we select a stack, and this is actually a good time to analyze what a stack actually looks like and how it does, we can see a number of things. We can see the portrait of the leader of the stack. Also, the color of the stack indicates the nationality as well as the flag we can see at the top right of the stack. Then we can see 3 bars, and here they're all partially filled. So these 3 bars indicate strength, so that would mean how many troops are there compared to if the unit was full strength. Like, so if 100% of the troops were there in the army, the strength bar would be full. If you suffer casualties, it will drop. Excuse me. We got supplies and we got cohesion. So supplies is a mix of like the general supplies and the war supply, and the cohesion, which is the center bar, the blue bar, is how well is your army organized at this point. So extended marching will lower cohesion, extended combat will lower cohesion. So every now and then you gotta give your army some rest to and let them recuperate. For example, it might have been wise to let this army rest a bit before sending it in, because it suffers from lower cohesion, and cohesion influences directly how effective an army is in combat. But excellent question, Cell Searcher. So we got our army over here, and it's all ready. It's all fit and all ready. We got 2 stacks actually. We got the 3rd Corps and the Reserve Corps, and we're gonna send them up north and try again and take out these guys. And we're gonna attack from different sides. I want to send out these guys as well, but they're somewhat low in supply, so I'm gonna wait a bit. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to move our Supreme, our headquarters of the army. I'm going to move them south, August von Mackensen, to make sure he keeps within range of these troops. We can see if I hit shift, we can see his command radius. And we can see that our Austrian army is actually outside of that radius. So we're going to select him and move him south to Belgrade. At the same time, I'm going to select my 11th army from Belgrade, and I'm going to have them move south as well. Try and get them to Vranja and try and get them ready to engage the enemy at the front over here. I'm going to order to have him use the train whenever possible. It'll still be a significant time for him to arrive. It's a huge army, so it's not easy to move about. Another thing we can see here is a new icon. We actually successfully broke the railroad network over here. This unit, though, has been out of supply in doing so, so I need to get it back to our own lines. But this means that the enemy won't be able to rail in all their troops quickly into our flank. So that's a great job from us, and a great way to use smaller armies, to use these skirmisher units. So having done that, I'm going to move south my fighters as well. Fighter missions are done automatically. In different scenarios, you'll see dogfights, you see bombardments, and you'll see recon missions being carried out. And they can really impact a battle, actually. but you need to keep them close to the front lines. Obviously, we're here at a time where the ranges of fighters are very limited. This is really the dawn of aerial combat. Actually, rather than sending these guys into the forest, I'm going to have them push south and see if we can secure this depot from the enemy. Ah, yes, Surtur. Heroes of Normandy is our recently released game, which is a board game conversion actually. Um, it's a very it's a lot more much of a lighter game that we're seeing here, but it's very good fun. It's quick to pick up and it's really great. It really shines in multiplayer. We suffered a defeat here on the hands of the enemy, although we inflicted more casualties on the enemy army. Still though, not ideal. So the enemies actually has moved away from this area, pushed south, kicking out our garrison force, and they could potentially line up these guys and form a big stack. So that's not something we want to do. We want to let them happen, but at the moment our forces in the area are fairly limited. Also, we should get them off the assault posture. Here we're getting close to Skopje again, but it is well garrisoned. So we were too late, unfortunately. And there's a significant force hiding in the forest over here. Again, I hope by taking them away from all their supply bases that they will slowly run out. We got some local forces to defend, so they won't be able to launch any determined attacks. These guys I'm gonna move south, try and use trains where necessary, and see if they can link up together to put a bit more pressure, or at least to form a more stable defense. I'm not really happy that they got a sizable army over here already. I feel like I'm doing fairly well with taking territory in the northern area, but not very well at actually getting rid of the armies. So as long as they are there, they continue to form a threat behind my lines. So I need to have forces tied up here, whereas I want to have them move south, converging on Skopje, and eventually just blocking off the enemy area for sending reinforcements. What about production self-searcher? Like Plastic Gangsta is saying here, there is no production in this particular scenario because it is a smaller one. You really have to make do with the forces you have. In the bigger scenarios, and especially in the campaigns, yes, there's a whole lot of production. You need to make sure you get enough garrison troops. You need to produce your tanks once they become available. There's technology progression as well. So eventually you get more advanced weapons and armaments. And the technology and the production really dictate the flow of the game. So that's very important. And if you were thinking about reinforcements, like I just see you reading now, yes, there is reinforcements. There is like filling up the casualties you got there, and I can show you in a second a bit more detail. We looked at it previously, but I set it to automatic, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. If you want, you can handle it manually, and I'll show you. I'll take you through it in a second. We got another battle going here at Skopje, so we just arrived with a sizable force, though it's still smaller than the enemies. So we need to have a conservative plan. We're going for a harassment. We want to stay in there until reinforcements arrives on our end. So we're going to do a harassment plan. We're going to try and bombard the enemy communications, messing with their plan. That will hopefully lower their effectiveness to such a degree that we'll be able to win the day, and we are actually winning the day, inflicting a significant number of casualties on the enemy. We suffered a good number ourselves, but we'd actually maintained ourselves in the region around Skopje, and we're now actually actively besieging it. So another very good job of our troops. Meanwhile, we got the British troops pushing in north. Again, they're significantly late because of our breaking of the railroads, but our skirmishers that have done so are now in danger. They're very close to reaching their own lines, but they might not make it in time, and I sincerely hope they will, because then I can continue to use them to harass behind enemy lines. Right, so let's have a look then again at the reinforcements. So if I select my unit over here, these are the armies in the stack. And if I select an individual army, you can see which elements this army consists. I can hit on any element to get more detailed combat values of this element and different traits. And here you can see again how detailed it is, that on a game on this scale where you have the entire war going on, you still have these amount of modifiers per individual element out there. So now you can see that this element is somewhat in red, whereas this one is full. So that means that this element has suffered some casualties, and these casualties need to be filled up with buying replacement chits. So if I go to the F2 screen again, and if I'm going to close this menu for a second, we can see here the different type of elements we have. So we have to buy different replacements for all kinds of unit types. So a regular line unit won't use the same type of elements as a militia unit or as a light artillery unit. So you need to buy replacements for each individual element, for each individual nation. So you might understand that German troops are not going to fill up the ranks of the Bulgarian army. So you need to spread those around as well. So it is not as simple as in some games where you can just click repair and it's done automatically. Here you have to actively plan and organize them yourself, unless you do the automatic way, which is not again, doesn't really match your own strategy per se. So if you want to say I'm going to have the Bulgarians carry this scenario for me, and I want them in tip-top shape, that you would buy yourself. You would buy replacements for the Bulgarians first, and if anything's left, you might replace losses in the Austro-Hungarian and German armies. If you do it automatically, it will treat them all equally. So we kick the enemy out of here, and we're going to move south and continue pressuring them, chasing them. I'm going to have you. Can you move up? No, you got a huge siege artillery, which doesn't really like to be moved. We could move them up, but I think it's actually useless to move them up. Will be more useful to move them south. And again, using the railroads from over 40 days to 18 days, it's a great way to go. In order to use the railroads, you need military control in the regions the railroads are running through. So in this case, I don't have military control over this region yet, so that's why I'm sending my army here, get military control, and get a whole line of railroads that allows for very fast movement. Well, like I said here, self-searcher, this is for replacements only, not for production of actual new units, which is done somewhat differently. And welcome back, Sukhoi, Slithering Group. You've missed a lot of victories. But so far, I think we're doing fairly well. We're approaching the end of 1915, so only I think 6 to 8 turns left. But I think we're definitely getting the better of the enemy. Victory point wise, we're doing better a lot. So even if we don't win by getting all our objectives, we'll probably win a numeric victory by victory points. And there we go, a German victory inflicting over 5,000 casualties on the enemy. Was suffering about half of that ourselves. And that means that we are now the enemy has retreated into their supply base. We're threatening that. Meanwhile, we're coming south with our other armies, so they might actually be locked in and taken out once and for all. So that would be a very good thing for us. In the meantime, I'm going to be moving our armies and continue to chase the enemy into the forest over here, draining their supplies, draining their manpower. I'm gonna have you guys retreat away from the town, try and get you to a bit more safety. And I'm giving the enemy a significant bit of freedom over here, but actually I wouldn't mind actually luring them out in order to face them in the open, rather than where they have a strategic advantage. It certainly looks like I'm winning this time around. Let's have a quick look at the victory points here, just so we can see how well I'm doing for once. So we got a 293 amount of victory points, gaining 16 each turn, whereas the enemy currently has 144, gaining 10 each turn. So again, if we can remain, keep the status quo here, we will be winning. So we're hitting the end turn again, and the AI is generating its files. I should mention that this game is also playable multiplayer using a PBEM system. So that's a great way if you're tired of the AI doing and want to the best challenge you can get. In that case, you'll definitely want to go on the multiplayer. They're a very active group of multiplayer there, community that are really willing to also help you forming strategies, talking gameplay strategies, talking best mechanics, etc. So there's a great community out there, especially on the Ageod forum. So you really want to go ahead and go there and have a look. Also to read after action reports, read strategies, etc. So they're arriving here in 4 days, which is good because we got the British again moving up and up and up. And we're still besieging Skopje, so hopefully we can actually take it soon. Does it have a defensive structure? It doesn't have a fort, so we could potentially actually assault it. It might be worth trying. Our generals are active, which is the indicated by the white envelope over here. So that means I can give them both offensive orders and they will respond to it. And having done that, let's have a look. Our armies, most of our armies are still moving about. We got one army over here that's somewhat threatened, so I hope these guys are hurrying up because I really need them. But they're delayed significantly, and again, the general is lost failed his activation check, so he's suffering a delay. Let's have a look here. So you got the French units over here pressuring as well, and the British are slowly moving up, so we need to keep that into account. So hopefully these guys will arrive there in time to prevent the British army from actually enveloping and isolating our Bulgarian army. And let's have a look over here, a Bulgarian victory. Very good. We can see that the enemy is giving up without much of a fight over there, so that's a good sign for us. Our other army that was aiming to get to the depot has become isolated now and suffered a major defeat, and will probably be forced to leave the area sooner rather than later, whereas reinforcements won't be there in time and are actually stuck fighting any stragglers over here. So that's not going too well. What I could do and what I am going to do, I'm going to try and send in reinforcements in the form of the Bulgarian High Command. Ooh, what was that? Don't want to do that. I need you south. These guys are delayed, having failed their activation check, unfortunately. send them forward into... Keep charging the enemy, keep chasing them. I'm just merging our fighter corps, and I think, well, I don't want to send out my reserve corps over here. I think I like them to know that Belgrade is actually secured. And we don't have any intel on this British troops, so I don't know how strong they are, or how supplied they are in this area. So that's unfortunate. The good thing is that we did actually manage to capture Skopje, including some extra supplies, which is very nice. So we got 2 armies over here, and I think I'm going to leave the first army to garrison it, whereas we have the second army back. And again, having full railroad control in 2 days, they'll be able to back to prevent the British from pushing out further. At least until further reinforcements arrive, and they are getting close there. So we're doing very, very well. I'm sorry your query hasn't been answered, that random gamer. Might very well be that there isn't a clear answer at the ready, but they'll be sure to have read it. They read all kinds of bug support and try and patch as many things as possible. So please have some patience and don't be afraid to bump a thread if needed. So having done that, all things are still going relatively well. We managed to evade combat over here, which is a very good thing. And we managed to chase the enemy out of Zvornik, so we can continue pushing them south. And send a relief force coming from 2 sides now. So if they can just hold out long enough, it should be fine. I'm going to send them to charge as well. And if we can get rid of the enemy here, we're actually free to move all our troops south. Let's see how many turns we actually have remaining, because we are running out of time here. I would really like to finish this scenario, because it's not often that I actually get to finish the scenario live. So let's have a look. We still have 6 turns remaining, so I probably won't be able to finish it. However, it seems like we're doing fairly well. So let's do 1 more turn before we hit it off. If you are interested in other aspects of the game, we have done a previous stream on the Romanian front as well, and I've done some streams on other Ageod games. So if you look back on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, you can see a number of streams out there for Alaiak to Est, for Revolution Under Siege Gold, and they will help you to get more familiar with in the game. And they also cover like production, for example, and army organization. And that's another thing that Random Gamer is mentioning. That's another thing that I haven't mentioned so far is national morale. National morale gives all kinds of boosts and effectiveness, increases production of an army, and national morale is modified by victories, capturing strategic places, and lowered by losing major battles, etc. And this is another one of these things that is measured by Ageod. So while it isn't very much a grand strategy game, but more of a operational, or at least you don't do as much diplomacy, for example, as you would in other grand strategy games, there's still this national morale is taken into account, and at some point your people just lose their will to fight and to contribute to the war effort. That's I think we need to conclude here. I think we're rapidly running out of time. So that's where we're going to conclude at this point. As for whose YouTube channel that is the Slytherin YouTube channel. This should also be on the Matrix YouTube channel. But if you go to YouTube, type in Slytherin, you'll find our channel, and from there you will be able to scroll through all our videos. Type in Alaiak to Est, and you should be able to find our stream where I'll take you through the basics of that game. And also 30 Years War, exactly. I did Revolution Under Siege, so there's quite a lot out there that you might want to have a look at. So let's just quickly look at how the military controls at the moment, and we can see that our color is a whole lot more present than that of the enemy. So we've definitely gained significant advantages, and we've been secured our borders in time before a significant French and British army arrive. So it's looking very good for us. And thank you, Slytherin Group, for posting the link to our YouTube channel over there, where you can see, we'll be able to see this one, rewatch this one if you want to have a look in a couple of days when it's up there, as well as rewatch any of our previous streams that we've done before. So having said that, I'm gonna look out for tonight. I'd like to thank you all for watching, for contributing in the chat, asking your questions and your queries. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and if you want to, we'll be back actually Saturday already with another stream. Where Eric will be taking us through the recently released War in the West Operation Torch expansion. So hopefully we'll see you then. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everyone.